Perfect. Well, we will get ourselves started here today. Thank you so much for joining for the Building the School Profile Research and Resources for Counselors. Just a reminder on clock hours, I am taking attendance, so you all will receive the clock hour form at the end of this training today. If you are watching this as a recording, there will be a brief multi-choice quiz included as well after watching the webinar for confirmation of viewing. And then I'm happy to give you your clock hour form. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass off the mic to Trisha and Sarah to share with us today.
Hi, everybody. We are so excited to be here. Thank you so much for coming. The title of this webinar today is Building the School Profile, Research and Resources for Counselors, which is you all. My name is Sarah Greach, and I'm the College Admissions Coordinator at Making Caring Common, which is a project under the Harvard Graduate School of Education.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to meet you all and be here today. My name is Trisha Ross Anderson, and I'm the College Admissions Program Director. And thank you all for making time in your schedules. I know this is a very busy time of year for you all. So thanks for being here today.
Awesome. And before we jump in today, so this is a little bit different of a presentation. It's a platform called AHA Slides. And so our goal today is to make this as interactive as possible, and we're going to need your help with that. If you do have your cell phone near you, if you're able to scan this QR code on the left-hand side, you can also type in the browser right there, ahaslides.com, and that code, so you can join us today. You're also able to chat with us in the Zoom chat, whatever is most comfortable and whatever works best for you all. But I'm going to leave that up for a few seconds in case anybody wants to join. You'll also be able to see the slides from your phone, which is a really fun feature. So we're going to go ahead and leave that for a few moments. Awesome. And I'll bring up this QR code as we get to the more interactive portions, which, speaking of, welcome. We are so excited for today's session. What district / school / city are you based in? Freeman. Cool. Renton. La Center or LA Center. Seattle. Oh, cool. Oh, great. Love this. Love this. So this is cool. You all are able to see where everyone is tuning in from. Seeing Olympia, Connell High School, Kennewick, Snohomish, Marysville, and we're getting some info in the chat. I'm seeing Olympia again, Ferndale High School, Ferndale, North Mason. Cool. North Thurston. Awesome. I'm loving this. Thank you all so much for interacting and putting, wow, this is awesome. We've got a big group today. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and move to our next question, which is, we're going to talk about the school profile today. So how familiar are you all with the school profile? Wait, what is the school profile? Heard of it, but I've never made one before. I've made it once or twice, or you're a total pro. And of course, there's no wrong answer here. I know you guys know this, but we just want to get a little bit of an idea of where folks are coming in. Cool. So I've made it once or twice. 13 of you are feeling that most accurately represents your situation. Wait, what is the school profile? Love to see that, because hopefully we'll be able to answer that question today. I'm a total pro. Thank you all for joining us. Hopefully will be a really meaningful sort of refresher, and maybe you'll pick up a few things today. That's our hope anyway. Heard of it, but I've never made one. Hopefully our resources will help you if you are to go ahead and make one in the future. Awesome. All right. Thank you all so much. And we are going to kick it off with one more question. When you think of the school profile, what is one word that comes to mind? College, big one. Informative, information, there you go. Marketing. Oh, that's interesting. Data. Absolutely. Overwhelming. Yeah. It's sort of like kind of a blank slate, and it's up to really the context of the school and what to put on it. So overwhelming does make sense. Information again, for sure. For sure. Seeing a few more folks typing, so we'll give it a moment. All encompassing. That's our hope, right? Is for it to be all encompassing and to give as much information as possible in the context for where the students are studying in the school that they go to. Absolutely. Resource, big one. Out of state, out of state. I suppose out of state is sort of in reference of colleges, looking at the information from an out of state perspective. Seeing a few more folks typing. Context, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you all so much for participating. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Trisha.
Hi. You have a work form? Awesome. Don't mind, I have.
Cool. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you everybody for participating. I promise we're going to talk about profiles in just a moment, but before we get there, I want to tell you a little bit about the organization that Sarah and I work for. Again, this is Making Caring Common. We're a project of the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And ironically enough, most of what we do there at Making Caring Common has nothing to do with admissions at all. Mostly what we do is work to promote caring and compassion in kids, and we do that by working with the adults in their lives, educators and parents. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say to this group of counselors in this room here that we have on our website a ton of free resources available that are really all about the promotion of school culture and climate, building of relationships between students and students and students and staff. And so if you want to check out our website, it's makingcaringcommon.org. I'll say that again, makingcaringcommon.org. Tons of free stuff on there. Would encourage you to check it out. But we got involved in the admissions space about 8 years ago when we were out there talking to lots of kids and families and educators about building caring in their communities, and we realized for many kids just how much for many of them they felt like they wanted to they were telling us that they thought that the college admissions process was a barrier in their journey to caring. They would say things to us like, I'm a really caring person, but first of all, I just have to get whatever score on the SAT, or I just have to take a few more AP courses because that's the only thing that colleges care about. And we were really concerned about that, and we ended up writing a report called Turning the Tide that was really focused on admissions, and we've been involved in the admissions process ever since. And one of our big goals of our work is really focused on ethical character, reducing excessive achievement pressure, and promoting access and equity for all students in admissions. And we've been involved in that space for the last 8 or so years. Okay, so why are we here today? We are here to think about the school profile. We're going to talk about what a school profile is and why it matters. For those of you that are pros, this is going to be a little bit of a refresher. Hopefully you'll bear with us on that. We're going to talk about what colleges say are the most important elements to include in a profile. This is going to build on some original research from Dr. Tara Nicola, and I'm going to share that research with you today. We're also going to share with you a wide array of free tools for developing the profile. These are new tools developed by our team at Making Caring Common that build from that research that I'm going to share with you from Dr. Nicola. And we're going to give you lots of opportunities throughout this presentation today to reflect on your own profile and the process that you use to build that profile. So hopefully that sounds like what you signed up for today and what you're expecting. Okay. Let's start with the basics. And again, for those of you that are already a pro, this will be a little bit of a refresher, but hopefully that sounds like a good thing. For those of you that are new to this, again, we'll move into this a little bit slowly. What is a school profile? In a nutshell, a school profile is designed to share easily digestible, important contextual information with colleges about your school. This is information like your policies, your curriculum, your information about your community and your grading system. Super importantly, this information is created by your school. This is not information that anyone is going to tell you exactly what needs to be in this, except for perhaps Dr. Nicola and the research that I'm going to share with you in just a moment. But there's no correct answer as to exactly what's going to be in this. This is up to you and your school. And the goal here is just to help colleges see the full picture. What should they know about your school context and your students? So it's really up to you as the counselor or to you and your school leadership to decide what goes in it to better understand this full picture. And it's particularly important for students who have non-traditional educational experiences. How would colleges understand this non-traditional educational experience if you are not telling them more about that non-traditional educational experience? And very important, it's critical for advancing equity. And I'm going to tell you more about how it's critical for advancing equity in the next slide. Okay, so the school profile, one of the main things it can do is shine a light on disparities between students' experiences. Now, we know there are big disparities between high schools in terms of resources, in terms of course offerings, in terms of grades, in terms of score allocations. And it's really important that admission officers can better understand students' academic achievements in context of those school offerings and in terms of and in the context of those experiences. So I want you to think for a second about two different students. We'll call them Jesse and Jamie. And you can imagine on paper, these two students look really similar, right? Like let's imagine Jesse and Jamie, they have very similar extracurricular activities. They have very similar grades. They have similar SAT scores. So on paper, they're very, very similar. But when the school were to receive their school profiles, they were to realize, a college were to realize that they actually come from two very different school environments. Jesse goes to school A. School A is very, very crowded. It has very limited resources. There's a very there's a lot of, again, a lot of students. There's there's not a lot of advanced coursework, and the average SAT score is a lower SAT score. School B is it's a less crowded school. There are many, many resources at this school. Just think of lots of extracurricular activities. There's lots of advanced courses that are offered there. Lots of programming is available, supports for students. There's a really low student-teacher ratio, a really low student-counselor ratio. There's many, many advanced courses there, maybe 15. And again, remember, Jesse and Jamie both took the same number of advanced courses, but in one school, there was only 3 advanced courses offered, and in one school, there was 15 advanced courses offered. They got the same SAT score, but in one, the SAT score in the school is 990, and in one, the average SAT score is 1300, right? So again, on paper, they look the same, but when you compare their school context, those students look very different, actually. So that would be important contextual information for these colleges to know about these two students, to really better understand how these students are learning and thriving in the context of their school environment. I'm going to give you another example. You could imagine that there's a student who initially applies to college and is considered less qualified because it might look like they took no advanced courses in high school. Maybe the college is looking for AP courses and they don't see any. But a school profile might help that college understand that the school didn't actually offer AP courses, right? It's not the student's fault. The school didn't offer AP courses. Instead, the school offered another form of rigorous coursework, right? The college wouldn't know that it's not the student's fault that they didn't take AP courses, that their school offered something else instead, that the school profile is sharing that information with the college, and that is the way that the college would get that information. So that is part of the way that the school profile can really contribute to equity. And we know, of course, that research has shown that limited information about students' educational context negatively affects admission decisions for high-achieving and underrepresented applicants, while additional context promotes more equitable admission outcomes. Okay, let's get to some of this new research that I promised I would share with you. This is a paper that is written by Dr. Tara Nicola, and I'm going to walk it through in just a moment through this new research that she has written. But if you are interested in learning more, you can go here to read the full article. Importantly, this is, you can see a picture right here of Dr. Tara Nicola. I am not Dr. Tara Nicola. So if you have a really hard question that I cannot answer, know that I will find the answer for you, and you can reach out to me afterwards and I will get you the answer if I can't answer it today. And I also want to share why I wanted to partner with Dr. Nicola, or why our MCC wanted to partner with Dr. Nicola. And that is that, oftentimes when we hear researchers present at the Ed School, new research, it's always smart, it's always interesting. But Dr. Nicola's research felt so practical, right? She was telling us things that we said, if only counselors knew this could have a real impact on their practice and on the lives of kids tomorrow. And we heard this and we said, this is the kind of thing we have to create new resources based on this research now. And that's exactly what we did. We took her research and we created tools and tips, and we're disseminating them out nationally. And that's why we're here today. Okay, so what is this research? Dr. Nicola asked a couple of questions. She wanted to know, what are the elements of profiles that admission officers seek? So when admission officers are looking at profiles, what exactly are they looking for? And also, what elements do profiles contain? So when you look at real profiles out in the wild, when you look at profiles used by schools in New Hampshire and in Washington and Nebraska and in all states in the wild, do they have the elements that real admission officers have said are important to them based on her interviews? So what did she do? She conducted interviews with 25 admission officers in colleges, and these are interviews with 25 admission professionals from 22 selective private institutions. She asked them questions like, what do you look for when you're looking at profiles? What's useful? What else do you want to see? And then to answer the second question, again is, what do real profiles contain in the wild? Do they have the stuff that admission officers are actually looking for? She looked at 300 school profiles in the wild. And she didn't just look at random ones that she just found randomly on the internet. She took a group of 300 and she stratified by geography and school type, etc., to get a sample, or a representative sample of 100 school profiles from 45 states. And then she did a rigorous analysis of those 100 profiles and qualitative coding to see what was really inside of them. So that's how we kind of look at and see, what do profiles in the wild consist of. So to answer this first question, what are the important elements in school profiles? And again, this is how Dr. Nicola answered this question by doing those 25 interviews with admissions officers. This is what admission officers say that they are looking for when they are looking at profiles. And if you're not sure what some of these items refer to, the good news is that we have a ton of tips and tools for you in our resources. And I'm going to walk you through all of these in just a moment, but I'll take a second to read these aloud. So admission officers are looking for the following in your profile. So they're looking for course listings, graduation requirements, curriculum overview, institutional policies, grading policies, class rank, GPA distribution, the college going rate, college destination, standardized testing, community overview, the neighborhood, student demographics, and enrollment. So again, that is what colleges are looking for in a school profile. Now let's see how schools in the wild are doing. So when we look at actual profiles that are out there existing by real schools today, do those schools have the things in them that colleges are saying are important to them? So when you look at this bar graph here, all of these things on the bar graph are things that real colleges have said are important to them. But you can see that They're all different heights on the bar graphs, and those represent how common each of these things are in the wild. So for instance, if you look at the one furthest on the left, grading scales and policies, 87 schools out of 100 schools have grading scales and policies on their school profile. So grading scales and policies is very, very common to have in school profiles in the wild. Graduation requirements, also very, very common. Most schools have graduation requirements in their school profile based on Dr. Nicola's analysis. 82% of schools have courses offered in their school profiles. 84% of schools have number of students enrolled, and 76% have college going rate. That their college going rate is represented in their school profile. So all of these bars on the left here, the light orange, are the things that most schools have a lot of in their school profile, the things that schools tend to be doing really well at, you might say. Let's look at the bars on the right side. These are the dark orange bars. These are the things that schools tend not to have so commonly in their school profiles. Again, all of these are just as important to colleges. Colleges say that all of these things are important to them in school profiles, but they tend to be less common. So institutional policies, only 23% of school profiles in the wild have institutional policies reported. Only 50% of schools in the wild are reporting anything about their school neighborhood. 24% of schools in the wild are including GPA distribution. And the last one is student demographics. Only 41% of schools in the wild are sharing student demographics. I don't know if this is surprising to you or not. This one is always a little surprising to me, that only 41% of schools out there, according to this research anyway, are choosing to share anything about their student demographics. But that one seems a little bit surprising to me. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, Sarah. So again, when we look across 100 school profiles, there was only actually one school, according to Dr. Nicola's research, that had all 14 elements that were cited as important to college admissions offices. And the average number of elements in a profile was 8.62. Again, that's 8.62 out of 14 elements that you might remember that colleges said are important to them. So 8.62 out of 14. And we do see pretty big differences by school type. So for example, elite schools and private high schools were 3 times more likely to use visuals or graphs in their profile. And we know that's a best practice. They're also much more likely to contain a number of the key components that was included as important by admissions officers. So the elite and private high schools had a greater number of the elements that were important to admission officers. I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah for a moment.
Alrighty. So just in case to go over this again, the QR code is on the left for you all to interact with us. You can use your smartphone. Again, feel free to use the Zoom chat as well. No problem at all with that. And so our question for you is, how many of the elements noted as important in the research do you include in your profile currently? Which are missing? We are brand new, don't have one yet. Ooh, that's exciting. So this really is going to be the start of a new era, if you will, having a school profile for your brand new school. Hopefully these resources are a help, especially when you're starting from scratch. School community, none, we're a new school. Okay. 6, 7, course listings, okay. Missing post-secondary outcomes, missing institutional policies and GPA distribution. What are they exactly? We've been getting this question quite a lot on institutional policies. Trisha, would we want to address this here, or should we leave this for the Q&A?
Let's make sure we get to that, but let's do it at the Q&A at the end.
Okay, Perfect. Hold on to that question. Feel free to ask it again at the Q&A at the end, but I'm also going to remember to zoom in a little bit more on institutional policies and GPA distributions if you want some clarity on that as well. 10 included, no graphics. Got you. It would have helped to get clarity on what the elements actually mean, institutional policy. Great, then we'll absolutely go over that at the Q&A section. All 14 plus way too much more want to include visuals / graphics. Interesting to hear that you feel that you're including way too much more. That would be cool to see what much more that you're including in your current school profile, just out of curiosity. We are doing better on items than I thought. Missing institutional policies and course listings. Missing policies, rank, GPA distribution, student demographics. Cool. Unsure what information to include about community. That's definitely fair. That's fair. And that's also something that we can address during the Q&A. 10.
Sarah, I would say the other thing that we can highlight it is we'll show you at one point some sample school profiles that we've generated, and that's another place where we can actually show you some sample institutional policies.
Mm-hmm. And within that template, we do have a few visuals that perhaps would be sort of beneficial for you all to incorporate. And of course, these are all free resources, and we'll be sharing how to access those soon. What do they want for neighborhood? That's also a good question. That's a good question. Should we leave this again for the end, or what do you think?
Yes. So I think what we'll do, these are great questions. I love that you're jumping into the questions. What we're going to do is we're going to, in just a moment, walk you through some of the tools that we have available, and we're going to actually show you a sample of some of our example tools. And I think that some of these questions might be answered via that. And then if they're not, we will have a Q&A at the end, and any of the questions that are not answered, we will absolutely take those on at that time.
Sounds good. Okay, seeing a lull in folks typing. So, oh, okay, seeing someone type. We will leave no response unrecognized, so we'll stay here for a couple of moments. Not sure what some of the things mean. Yeah, absolutely, that's fair. I think, yeah, absolutely. When we go through the templates and the example school profiles, it'll definitely add a little bit more clarity. Okay, gonna go ahead and move forward.
Okay. So let's talk about, I promise we're going to get to the tools in just a moment, but I want to tell you before we get to the tools how we got there, because the process matters, and whose voices were in a part of the process matters. So we originally drafted our materials based on Dr. Nicola's research, and then we shared the tools that we had drafted with some counselors and some other stakeholders, and they gave us some really important feedback, and that was that there was an important voice missing in the documents. Dr. Nicola's research really focuses on the admissions officer perspective, right? What does an admissions officer want, and what is missing for an admissions officer, right? But it ignores, again, an important voice, and the important voice missing is, you're probably all screaming in your chair, like, duh, it's the counselor voice, right? Like the counselor voice is missing here, right? Because what we learned from talking to some super experienced counselors is that there's often reasons why counselors may choose to omit certain things from the profile. And it's not because you don't know to include certain things from the profile, right? Admissions officers might say, we want all of these things in the profile. But what we heard from, again, from super experienced counselors was, there are reasons sometimes where I don't share bits of information with admissions offices, and it's because I believe as an experienced counselor that that information doesn't always 100% benefit all of my students. So I make a strategic choice about which information to share and what information to omit. And we said, Of course you do. And so we realized that we needed to go back to the drawing board in some way and do some interviews with counselors and really better understand their process, their strategic thinking around the development of the profile. So we went back and we did a bunch of our own interviews with counselors. And we talked to counselors from a wide variety of schools across the U.S. And mostly very experienced counselors that have been doing this for a while to better understand their decision-making processes. And then we developed a series of new documents that represented those diverse perspectives, right? Like, how do you decide what to include in the profile? How do you make those kind of complex decisions about including certain materials in the profile, and what does your process look like? And all of that was reflected in the new set of documents that we've created, and which we're going to share with you in just a moment. So what do these docs include? So first of all, we have an FAQ for school leaders. This is a doc that we hope is helpful to you. Specifically, it could be useful to create buy-in with your school leadership. So if you've got a principal, or another school leader who's saying, why are you spending so much time on this? Do you really need another 4 hours of your day to collect data and make this form? That is exactly what this document is for. It is meant so you could hand it to your principal, hand it to your school leader, and it's going to hopefully convince them why this doc matters, why is it important, why it takes so much of your time. It is really intended to help you build that buy-in and support. So that is what that document is for. It's meant to be kind of high-level informational. Then we've got a document called Specifics for School Leaders. This is what you were just asking me for, like the what do you mean by institutional policies? What do you mean by neighborhood? This spells each of those out, like what does each of those things mean in great detail. And the beauty of that is none of those are my words, they're not Sarah's words, they are all straight from the horse's mouths, I should say. These are all direct quotes from admission officers who Dr. Nicola interviewed. So these are direct excerpts from admission officers saying, what do they mean when they say institutional policies? What do they mean when they say neighborhood descriptions? What exactly are they looking to see? And so I think you'll find that very helpful. Full disclosure, Dr. Nicola's paper can be a little bit difficult to access because there is a paywall, because it's a higher ed journal, but we have gotten permission to share this part of the paper with you. We've actually taken excerpts of the interview quotes from the paper. So this is fully accessible, and it's verbatim from the paper, but it's just the juicy interview bits that are relevant to your work. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Okay. Insights and dialogue. This is the best practices, the creating a school profile, best practices from counselors. That's just what it sounds like. We've asked counselors kind of, how do you do this? How do you physically make this thing? How do you make time for it? How do you build this profile document? Hear from your colleagues.
Please excuse the interruption. Any student who has not had their picture taken.
And then we've got this next one, approaching challenges in the profile. This is maybe my favorite document because it's messy. I don't mean it's like physically messy, but it's emotionally, socially messy. And that this gets into some of those challenges that I was describing. Some of these issues are a little bit are complicated, right? When you talk about something like, do I include average SAT score? Do I include student GPA? Do I include college destinations? These are the kinds of issues that some counselors had really complex opinions on. Some counselors were saying, yes, absolutely, I always include GPA, and here's why. And some counselors were telling us, no, I never include GPA, and here's why. And both had really thoughtful, smart perspectives on why yes or why no. So we gave you both perspectives. And again, these are not black and white decisions, but you've got both perspectives, sometimes 3 perspectives from 3 different counselors from 3 different situations, and you kind of help weigh out why you may or may not want to include it. And again, you've got the other perspective, which is the admissions counselor's perspective. You know that GPA is wanted by admissions counselors, but you've now got the counselor perspectives that might help you determine whether or not that makes the most sense for your students. And then finally, we've got templates and example profiles. So we've got both a 2-page profile example and a 3-page profile example. We have made these up. Our goal was we wanted to try to figure out how we could fit in all 14 of these elements into a 2-page and a 3-page profile example. We wanted to try to do what we're asking you to do. Start from scratch and try to put in all these elements into something that was relatively simple, relatively clean, and put in all these elements into a profile. We did it for 2 different schools. We made up 2 different types of schools, and we're not advocating that one is better than the other. We wanted to kind of give you 2 different approaches, so you'll see that the 2 different schools look different, both in terms of what the schools look like, but also the way that the profiles look. We wanted to give you some options to play around with. And then we gave you an editable template. The template looks a lot like the examples, but it actually gives you, and I should say the examples are also editable. So you can actually go in them, they're Word docs, so you can play around with them, you can delete things, you can type right over them, you can do whatever you want. The editable template is even maybe more user-friendly because rather than have a bunch of fake school information, it actually has open-ended questions for you. So it'll have things like, this section is intended to have all of your course lists. Consider the following, and then there's questions with bullets, right? We'll walk through these in just a moment so you can actually see them. But it's intended to kind of really guide you through the types of information that you would want to include in there. And again, it's all Word documents, so you could type right into it with the formatting kind of already laid out for you if it's helpful. And then we've got a template that's got annotations with just some other things that you might want to consider as you're typing into this document. Sarah, should we walk through the docs now, or do you want to show them where the stuff lives?
Yeah, let me sort of take you guys through where to find it. If you would like, you can scan this QR code and it will take you to the landing page where it has all of these documents laid out for you. And here is just a sort of step-by-step. If you go to Research and Programs at the Making Caring Common website and you click School Profile Project, here is where you will find all of the resources we've been going over today. And you also find Trisha's contact on the right-hand side. So here you can look at the example profiles, we can look at the FAQs, all of that good stuff. So Research and Programs down to School Profile Project. And here, and also Dr. Nicola's work is also cited here. And here are all the links for the resources. I am going to stop sharing for one moment to switch over to show you all one of the school profile examples, one of the 2. So one moment. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen. This is one of the 2 school profile examples. This is sample A.
Just kidding, I was muted. So this is our 2-page profile. Again, we have a 3-page as well. So somebody was asking about what you should include for neighborhood. Excuse me. So you can see this school and community context and little block here right up the top here. Again, we've got another example of another school that you can read as well, but you can kind of read what we've got in this first little block here. We talk a little bit about what is in the neighborhood. We say the Old Town boasts a diverse immigrant community. We're in proximity to many manufacturing plants. We talk about where families are employed. We talk about this particular school says that students play a significant role in homes, including translating for parents. We talk a little bit about the school. It's like an introduction to the school. So, you know, that's just the way this one is laid out. Again, the other school looks a little bit different. But the idea here is you're giving, especially if there's something that's notable about your town or your community, if something, if there, I think the other one talks about the fact that that town is, there's a big university in that town, and a lot of the kids in the school, their parents all work for the university, that is the major employer. You know, if there's something that's notable about your town, if there's a big event that has happened recently, like good or bad, you might want to note that a natural event or a historical or a social event that has happened that's made a big impact on your town. Those are the kinds of things that would be beneficial to mention in that kind of neighborhood context kind of piece at the beginning there. I hope that's helpful. Sarah, if you scroll down, you can see we've got demographic information, and demographics doesn't just have to be racial ethnicity information. You know, I know a lot of schools don't collect that, but if you've got, if you want to talk about free or reduced price lunch, you've got languages here, you've got English language learners, all that sort of information is really helpful for colleges to get a better sense of the students that are attending your school. Again, there's nothing fancy about this profile. I want to be really clear. Like, we are not fancy. You can tell we're not like professional designers by any stretch of stretch here. But you can see it was designed to look really clean. That the idea here is that an admissions officer can quickly scan this and read this pretty quickly. Let's keep scrolling down a little bit here, Sarah. You've got grade distributions here. You've got SAT scores. You can see here we've got like the middle 50%, taking the exam, and the high score. We've got programs and courses offered. There's many different ways that you could do this. For this particular school, and again, the other school looks different. We've listed just the AP courses offered and the honors programs courses offered. I think for most schools, if you listed every course that your school offered, it could probably take pages. So, you know, typically to do that, it would take a lot of space. So you might just want to zoom in on your most rigorous courses offered. That's typically what many schools will do. And then think about a way that you're going to summarize your extracurricular offerings. And this is, again, just one approach to doing that. That's the way that we did in this one. You've got your 4-year college destinations here. Again, the way that they did it in this particular one was to list colleges with 3+ matriculants in the past 4 years. Frankly, this is, again, another space-saving mechanism. If you listed every college that your students have been accepted to in the last 4 years, that could take pages of space. And some high schools do that. I have seen that. But that can take a lot of space. So you have to think about how you want to do this to be both accurate and also save yourself listing a lot of space. We've got discipline policies here. This is part of those institutional policies. It would include things like disciplinary policies, also academic policies. So I think somewhere up above, if you've got academic policies, right? If you've got rules about you can only take so many AP courses, or we've got limits to I don't know, we've got limits to the types of courses or the number of courses that students can take. Those are the types of policies that you would want to list on your profile. I think, is there anything that I'm missing here, Sarah, that would be important to mention? And you guys are all going to have access to all these resources, so hopefully these are helpful to you.
I think we went over everything. We can also show you all really quickly. Please let me know if you all can see this. The Word document here, it is an editable template. So this is in the same exact format of the example that Trisha just went over, but it has all of the guidance here to really help you fill it out and make it customizable to your specific school.
Yep, totally. Yeah, I think we've already covered most of this, Sarah. So you can see, like, just for the course listings one, I want to highlight this for a second. Like, this has got, we've got some good guidance here. It says, well, you might not be able to share every course. It can highlight your most advanced course offerings and provide context. So this is the to the point where it gives you some guidance here. Okay, Sarah, I'm wondering if we should move on. I know we probably have some questions, and also I know we had some other questions for our audience as well.
Absolutely. Let me pull back the presentation. Thank you all so much for bearing with me here.
Thanks, Sarah, for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, y'all, it's taking me a little bit. Here we go, taking its sweet time. Perfect. Let us move forward to, we do have a couple of questions here for you all. We want to be cognizant that we have enough time for Q&As, so we might spend a little less time than usual on this question, but really quickly just want to poll the room. What changes might you want to make to your profile and why? So looking at the chat here, Jen said, realizing now I'm missing a couple of the 14 elements. Oops. But that's okay. There's always room to add in, and there's always room to grow and make it as robust as we can. Tabitha said, that is amazing, super helpful. Yay, that's really, we're so glad to hear that. And that's truly our ultimate goal here, is to just really share these resources to you all. More graphics / aesthetically pleasing. Yeah, absolutely. That goes a long way, especially when it comes to college admissions officers where they really only have a few moments to really digest contextual information on an applicant. Jen also said student-teacher ratio, I think, has a really big picture of how many kids are in the classroom. Definitely. How do I know whether to use the 2-page or 3-page format? That's a very good question, Melissa. I think when you sit down and look at the two, it might give you a better idea of which one might be more applicable to your specific school. But I would definitely really recommend looking through both of them first. I'm going to minimize the chat for a second to go through these answers here. Thank you all so much for interacting. Really appreciate it. We're going to read this one here.
I just want to respond. Oh, can I just respond 1 second to Melissa for a second?
Oh, yes.
I would say, I think the goal here always has to be skim ability. Remember that the admissions offices are trying to read these very quickly. They don't have a lot of time. But also they are asking for these 14 things. So I would focus less on the number of pages, whether 2 or 3 is the right number, and more about can you get all the stuff you need to get in 2 pages? And if you can, then 2 is the right answer. And if you have to go to 3 to do a good job getting all the 14 elements in, then I would go to 3. So I would see, what do you need to get all the 14 elements in a way that feels good to you?
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to go through this a bit quickly because we want to save at least 10 minutes for our Q&A. We heard from some local school that they wanted it 1 page, feeling more flexible and adding more information and allowing for another page. Thanks for the templates. And this speaks to exactly what Trisha was just talking about. Absolutely. Layout, add info, remove as well, want to make it easier to read. Absolutely. I want to reduce the number of pages. I think we share a lot of information, but not everything is necessary. I think that's a really sort of impactful mindset to have, that not everything is necessary, but also at the same token is making sure that we're hitting as much of those elements as possible. We are a project-based interdisciplinary school. How to highlight? I think that's sort of a little bit of a broader question, a little bit hard for us to go into how to highlight specifically just going off of this, but again, I would really just recommend to sit down with these resources, and it should give you a little bit more clarity. Our goal when designing these resources, right, was for them to guide you as much as possible. You are sort of the expert, so to say, of the context of your school, and how the resources were built are really to help you put that together in a way that is supported by the research.
Can I just speak to that too, Sarah? I would say for that, I would highlight that right at the top, like right in that context information, like right at the beginning, I would start off with that. If that's a huge part of your culture and a huge part of how you operate, I would start off right with that. And I would explain what you mean by that. If that's affecting the way that your courses are run, that should probably run right through your profile in terms of when you're talking about your course offerings, I would start at the beginning with a description of that we're a project-based school, but if that's actually affecting your curricular choices, I would imagine you'll see that in your curricular offerings, right? Like that theme could emerge again when you're describing your courses that you're offering in your school, right? You could say, given that we're project-based, we don't offer the standard AP courses. We offer this instead because it meets the goal of project-based learning or whatever it is. But so I would imagine that would be a kind of a reoccurring theme in your profile.
100%, exactly. Lead with it. That's 100% really unique about your school. Seeing here, organized with graphics, improve layout, make it less than 5 pages. Missing some elements, new counselors wanting to cut post-secondary outcomes. Glad you included that in the elements. For sure, our graphics are too huge. It's about finding that balance, right, of including all of the necessary contextual information, but also being cognizant of sort of how much we want to put on the school profile and understanding that, space is money. Space is money, just in the broad sense. I've been trying to keep it to 1 page. Should we use Canva to make it look more appealing? That is completely up to you. 100% up to you. Canva is pretty easy to use. And if you find that you're able to make some visuals in there and you would like to put that into your own school profile, absolutely, why not? In terms of what is more common, I'm not sure if I can speak to that, but I think, Trisha, do you have any insight here?
I don't, because again, Dr. Nicola probably does because she actually looked at the profiles herself. I don't know. I haven't read the hundreds of profiles myself, so I don't know what's more common. Base what I do know based on reading the research is that what admissions officers want is something that looks really clean. I think that they probably care less about does it look fancy and care more about is it skimmable.
And that speaks to this. I've been trying to keep it 1 page, how to make it more easily digestible, for sure. Neighborhood information being really important for your school, and that's something you can absolutely put in the school profile. Okay. Perhaps replace a picture of our principal with a representative picture of our students. That's also a possibility that you can definitely do. Yeah, I really don't see why not there. Gonna go ahead and move to the next question. With our time being at 8 minutes, I'm just gonna go ahead and leave this question with you all. We won't exactly be going in deep here, but this is just something I want you guys to take away from this presentation as you look through the resources. Which of them do you look forward to exploring and what other support do you need? I am gonna keep it moving here. We're gonna have a Q&A session, but this is just something that you can keep in mind. And if you do need further support, please feel free to email either Trisha or I. We'll have our information at the end of the slides, at the end of the deck. So here's our question and answer session. Please feel free to add any questions here through the QR code on the left, the AHA Slides link, or you can use the Zoom chat.
There's one question in the chat from Jen. She asks, can we include links on the profile? For example, can we have Skills Center students attend 3 periods a day? Yeah, I mean, I think you can include links on the profile. I think that, and actually in the examples that we have like links to like schedule here. Like we have a link, I think, to go schedule if you want to schedule a visit with a counselor at our school, go here to see our whole course. That's one thing you can do is like, instead of listing all of your courses, you could say, go here to see our whole course catalog, right? Like here's our AP course offerings and go here if you want to see our whole course catalog, which is on our website. So yeah, I think you can absolutely include links on the profile. I think the tricky thing is that, are you guaranteed that people are going to access the links? Absolutely not, right? Again, they might have 30 seconds. So, anything that's critical that you want people to absolutely view, I would make sure is not a link because you might lose people in that transition.
Awesome. Thanks, Trisha. We've got some questions coming in. what does institutional policy mean? Also to highlight here, just as a friendly reminder, we do have one of our resources does go through all of the elements in depth. So that's just a reminder there, but we can spend a few moments on here.
Yeah. So, so institutional policy, and again, to Sarah's point, there's a lot more about this in there, but it could be institutional policy, could be things like who's in the school, like if you're like a charter school and there's rules about who gets in and who doesn't get in, for instance, that's part of institutional policy, for instance. Sometimes I forget if one of the if disciplinary policies are separate from institutional policy in the 14 things, but if it's not, that's part of it. And also academic policies, maybe that I forget if those are separate to those 14 things or not, but there's academic policies, certainly, like again, students can take a certain number of AP courses. You know, like whatever, we have a hard cap on AP courses. You can only take 3 a year or whatever. Like if you have any sort of academic policies, or we limit the number of courses students can take to X number. If you have academic policies, if you have disciplinary policies, and then again, institutional policies in general are things like, you know, if you have rules about who gets in, and things like that, that's what an institutional policy is. I'm not super articulate about this because, again, I am not an admissions officer, but if you go to that document that I mentioned, it's all spelled out very specifically from admissions officers' mouths.
Cool. Thank you so much. So we got another question here. How to capture changes to course offerings over the years, specifically the AP, Honors, CIHS. So the first thing that comes to my mind is to stay on top of it as much as possible within the school profile, especially if it is a massive change that really affected a broad number of students. So that's one thing that comes to my mind. Trisha, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So to Sarah's point, like I think that if you had a big change from last year, that is something you absolutely want to highlight in the profile, right? Like, you know, especially if you're applying, if this is a school that you know, maybe knew your school really well, and you know, you're going to want to highlight that change, right? Because like, let's say you had AP courses last year, and this year you moved away from AP to dual enrollment. I'm making all of this up, right? But what you don't want your school to think is, oh my gosh, this kid didn't take any AP courses, right? And like, they're not interested in rigorous curriculum. Well, that's not true, right? It's your kid, the kid that's applying wasn't offered AP courses, and instead he was taking dual enrollment, and that is now what we offer. That's our most rigorous curricula, whatever. So you would want to be super clear and articulate that we have made this change in our school. Yes, we used to offer AP courses. We're now offering this dual enrollment that has since replaced the AP curricula. So any sort of change between years, you would want to be very, very clear about those sorts of changes. And I think you can do that in a very succinct way by just saying, you know, this year, I would do that right. And you could do that if it's a big change, you could do that right at the very, very top of your profile, kind of in that framing information. It's like, we have a new curricula this year. We've made this big decision. You can always do it in the academic curricula section as well, or the disciplinary policies section, where you can say, the academic policies section, where you could say very explicitly, we've got this change this year. We have moved away from an AP curricula, again, all for example, into this new policy. You know, that's where I would explain that, but I would be very, very specific in articulating what that policy is, so that it's not held against any students.
Awesome. Where can I find a list of all 14 elements? Just dropped in the chat. Thank you so much, Lauren. So that is where you can find all of the elements. Small rural schools will look different, right? We offer less, but I guess that's the purpose of the profile. So this is great because two of our school profile examples, school profile A and school profile B, one of them, what we just looked at, actually sort of captures what a smaller school might put in their school profile. So that example, I would say, make sure to look at it, reference it, and that's something that you can absolutely refer to as you try to include the context of your small rural school. And we offer less, but not a problem. All you have to do is really include what you think is most important, and looking specifically, going down the list of the 14 elements, and whatever that you're able to put on your school profile, really, it's really could only help, I would say.
Yeah, that is 100% the point. Like that is, it's You're exactly right, Anonymous. Like 100% the point. Like they're all going to look different. And in fact, if you don't include that information, they wouldn't know that is what your school offers, and they wouldn't know that your school is different than the school in our example. So good on you to include that information.
And our last question here is, our school profile currently notes COVID restrictions and the impact to our school and district. Is this necessary to still include? When I see this, my first reaction is it really depends on your school. If your school is currently having COVID restrictions and you feel like that impact is still relevant to this day, then I would say if that really speaks to the context of your school, feel free to include it. Again, this really depends on your school. I mean, I would assume that most schools nationally, it's not something that's top of mind anymore, unfortunately. But again, if it is for your specific school and you feel that it is important in the context of the school profile, in the context of perhaps a college admissions officer could see it, I do think if you believe it's important and if your sort of administration believes it's important, then it would absolutely find its room on the school profile. But that's sort of just my take on it. What do you think, Trisha?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think if your school is still being affected by COVID restrictions, and if it's having a significant effect on your school and on your students, I would absolutely include it. If it's really just if it's a throwback to 2 years ago and it's just still on there because it's still just on there because that's what you had on there 2 years ago, but it's not still having a significant effect, then I would remove it.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for really interacting and honestly giving it your all today. We really appreciate it. Here is our information, and this will also be sent out to you by Lauren, I hope. So you have our contact info. Please, please do not hesitate to reach out and really enjoy these school profile resources. They were really created with so much thought and care behind them, and we can only hope that they really help you when tweaking or building upon your school profile. So we cannot thank you all enough for your time today. Thank you so, so, so much. Again, here's our contact info. Feel free to reach out. Awesome. Thank you all so
Okay.
much.
Have a great day. Thanks.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you all. You all will be receiving an email from me with links, all the contact information, as well as an opportunity to provide an evaluation survey to give feedback on the webinar. So thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.